Hi everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video will be dedicated to this really special celestial event that's happening next Monday. It is the solar eclipse in the sign of Scorpio. This solar eclipse is a total solar eclipse and it can be viewed in parts of South America. And this particular solar eclipse is happening at around 28 degrees of the sign Scorpio. Remember, these are sidereal degrees, not tropical. So when a solar eclipse happens, or any eclipse for that matter, it's when the nodes of the moon, the north node, which is called Rahu, and the south node, which is called Ketu, these nodes come in conjunction with both the sun and the moon. That's when an eclipse happens. The eclipse on Monday is going to be with the conjunction of sun and moon and Ketu in the sign of Scorpio at 28 degrees of Scorpio and Rahu in the sign of Taurus. Now there are many reasons why the solar eclipse is monumental and life-changing. All around the world right now we are seeing a lot of changes, and I would call it like a churn that's happening everywhere in almost every country. Now this particular solar eclipse, remember, solar eclipse can have a lot of impact on world events and at the same time in your personal lives, depending on which sign or which house these eclipse, the eclipse itself is falling. So the reason why this one is special is because, first of all, it's happening at 28 degrees of Scorpio. The nakshatra is nakshatra Jaishta. Now, the Jaishta nakshatra, although it has been kind of given, some negative connotations by certain astrologers, I would like to say that it is the nakshatra of manifestation. Because I've seen people with planets in this particular nakshatra having really extreme lives. I agree with that their lives are really extreme. Plus, when moon comes in the sign of Scorpio, it is in its sign of debilitation. So people do have a struggle with that. But at the same time, when you have planets in Jaishta, I've seen that it does give them the power to manifest because they end up being really strong in their convictions. This eclipse is happening in the sign of Jaishta, in the nakshatra Jaishta, in the sign of Scorpio, at 28 degrees of Scorpio. Now, what this means is, first of all, remember, in the natural zodiac, Scorpio is the 8th house. It's the house of research, the house of finding out new things that were hidden, the house of exposing the truth. So that is all Scorpio. That's what Scorpio does. And as you know, there is a new vaccine that's coming out for COVID-19, the virus that attacked this planet during the beginning of this year. And this eclipse happening in the sign of Scorpio, I feel, is going to help with all that research and everything that's going on with rolling out this new vaccine. Because the 8th house typically deals with research and going to the depths of something to understand it at the root. So this is going to help in some ways. But there are certain things about this particular eclipse that's going to be, I would say, a lot life-changing. Because if you notice in this chart, while the eclipse is happening, planet Mercury is conjunct Sun, Moon, and Ketu. So what does it mean when Mercury comes in conjunction with Ketu? Ketu signifies loss. Now, when Ketu and Mercury comes together, there is going to be a disruption in everything that's mercurial. Mercury deals with education, with speech, with schools. Mercury is about intellect. In India, the planet Mercury is called Budh, which stands for Buddhi, as an intellect. So that's the schools and the education system. So there is going to be a disruption to that in this coming year. Before I go further, I want to tell you, whenever an eclipse happens, it's almost like it's setting the stage for the coming year. So on the actual day, you may not see a lot of events happening. There may be a few, but in reality, that degree of the eclipse is like a marker. And then that marker gets triggered multiple times by planets in the coming year. That's when events happen. So when Mercury and Ketu come together, there could be events in this coming year which deal with the loss of communication, the loss of any kind of technology, internet, even traveling. Travel can be disrupted. And education. Like I said, Mercury deals with intellect, books, reading, all of that. Communication, because Mercury rules the natural third house. That's the reason why it rules everything to do with communication. And with Mercury coming in conjunction with Ketu, it's not a coincidence, because when that comes in conjunction, this coming year is going to be you'll see a lot of this trend of the loss of the mercurial side of things. At the same time, when you think about it from a more enlightened perspective, Ketu stands for spirituality. So Mercury coming with Ketu can also mean the birth of spiritual communication. People will become more and more inwardly rather than outwardly and material. And when things get tough outside, we do tend to retreat, retract, and go into retrospect. So that could also be another trend that you'll see in this coming year. That's the first special thing about this eclipse, the Mercury conjunction with the Ketu or the South Node. At the same time, the second special thing about this particular eclipse is, if you notice, the planet Neptune. In traditional Vedic astrology, we don't use the outer planets, but my teacher taught me to use the outer planets, and it really does work. So if you look at Neptune, Neptune is exactly at midpoint of the nodes of Rahu and Ketu. What does this mean? This means Neptune stands for disillusionment. It stands for deceit and deception. It stands for putting some person or a thing or a person on a pedestal and then feeling let down because they didn't live up to your expectations, because you really put them up on a pedestal. So Neptune has to do with kind of like a smoke screen, I would say. The truth would be hidden inside, and then there's a smoke that's covering it, and that's Neptune. Neptune also deals with movie, media, TV, television, any of that, because what does all that have to do? All that is Maya. It takes you away from the real world. It takes you into the illusion, and Neptune rules illusion. That's the reason why it rules photography and movie and media, because that's what all those areas depict, some sort of an illusion, because you are creating a story and showing it to everybody else. Now, when Neptune comes in the midpoint of the conjunction of Mercury and Ketu on one side and Rahu on the other side, this could mean that the media can be deceptive, because the Neptune is deception, and plus you have Mercury playing into it, plus you have the nodes. What do the nodes mean? The nodes are karmic access points. So whenever the nodes come, and the planet comes exactly at the midpoint of the nodes are trying to bring out something that the planet is trying to tell you. So there is something that's about Neptunian areas of life, which could be, like I said, television, media. It can be any kind of illusion, and the nodes are trying to bring that deceit or deception of that Neptune out into the open. Plus there's Mercury involved, so that's again communication. So there is something about what is being told to everybody and what is being conveyed to the general public that is not true. And that's Neptunian. Plus Neptune also rules secrecy. So there's a lot of secrets that are going to come out in the open. Remember, an eclipse itself stands for bringing something from the dark into the light. That's what an eclipse is, right? So when the eclipse itself is going to bring out a lot of secrets because it's in the sign of Scorpio, at the same time, with Neptune coming at the midpoint of the nodes of this particular eclipse, it's going to double that meaning, because Neptune itself is deceit and deception. So it's going to bring that out. Now, Neptune is also spirituality, and the reason why we have to remember that is because when we go through these cycles of being deceived, there is a point when we step back and we say, you know what, let me try to understand what life's trying to teach me. And that's where the spiritual aspect of Neptune comes around. Neptune can give you a really good psychic sense. So I think what's going to happen with this Neptune being at the midpoint of this eclipse this coming year, a lot of things that were hidden. It could be in the government, it could be in the public, it could be in your personal lives. Those things are going to come out in the open. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because when things come out from the secrets or from the hidden depths, they come out into the open. That means you can work on it. That means it's now out in the open and you have realized it and you can see it. So it can actually lead to a healing. Because when things are hidden, we don't know it's there. So there's no way there can be any kind of healing. But when it comes out in the open, that's when things are clear. People can see clear. The smoke that's created by Neptune, that smoke screen will be taken off and people can see the actual truth of what's underneath. And that will lead to change and healing. So that's going to be the trend this coming year, with Neptune coming like that in between the eclipse and the exact midpoint of this eclipse. Now another thing, the eclipse is happening in the sign of Scorpio. The sign of Scorpio is ruled by Mars. And Mars, as you can see, is in the sign of Pisces. Mars rules anger and retaliation, frustration. It's a red planet. It's a warrior planet. It has a warrior energy. And when that comes in the sign of Pisces, it's out of control, because Pisces is a water sign. Mars doesn't do well there. So this energy of anger and frustration can go out of control. In around 2 weeks from now, Mars will be in the last few degrees of Pisces, which is called the Gandhanta degree. This Gandhanta degree is basically around 28 to 29 degrees of Pisces. When Mars comes there can be, it's almost like, my teacher always told me, it's the feeling of drowning. So people feel out of control, like they don't understand what's going on. And that feeling can intensify towards the end of this year. But then Mars will go into Aries after that. And that'll bring a little bit of a relief, because Aries is ruled by Mars and Aries is itself a dominant sign. So Mars will do well there. It's a fire sign and Mars is a fire planet. So it'll do okay there. But Mars in Pisces is going to be a little challenging, especially when that Mars is ruling the sign in which the eclipse is happening. Now, in your personal lives, you will see a lot of changes in the sign or the house that is signified by the sign Scorpio. So if you're, for example, an Aries ascendant, the eclipse is happening in your 8th house. So there will be a lot of things that come out into the open. The trend is going to be bringing things from the dark into the light. So that's pretty much going to be the trend. So when it's in the 8th house, it's going to be about finances. It's going to be about money that comes to you from other avenues other than your career. So it can be inheritances. 8th house is also a very transformative house. It's very subconscious. So there can be a lot of subconscious questioning that you're doing this year, where you kind of find out a lot of things about yourself which you never found out in the past. And that's good, because when you go into your subconscious mind and you find out why are certain things in your life in a certain way, that's when you find the answer to those things, because all the answer is in our subconscious. It's just that we don't go there very often. So for Aries ascendants, this is going to be in their 8th house. For Taurus ascendant, this is going to be in their 7th house. So the focus this coming year is going to be relationships. So a lot of changes are going to happen in their relationship house. And it may not all be bad. It's just that things that were not spoken, sometimes we tend to repress our energy. We tend to not speak. We just kind of shrug things off and say, you know what, I'll deal with that later. But with the eclipse happening in your 7th house, this year you will be dealing with it. You will be thinking about those areas of your life, especially to do with 7th house areas, which can be relationship, it can be business partnership. And things that you did not see very clearly in the past can now come out very easily in the open. You will be able to see it. You'll be able to understand why certain things were the way they were, because it's not hidden anymore. Because there was an eclipse in your 7th house from Taurus. If you're a Gemini ascendant, this is happening in your 6th house of health and diet and nutrition. And 6th house is also, don't forget, it's work, it's your daily routine. So there could be something about your diet that you're going to change this coming year. You may realize that you've been doing something wrong, and that factor which was hidden before is now out in the open. So you may make some good changes in that area. 6th house is also enemies. So be careful this coming year that you may have some enemies who are talking behind your back. But again, with the eclipse happening there, you might actually find out about it now. You might actually get more enlightened about these enemies that were there in your life. And your work could change, your routine could change. All of that will be the focus this coming year. When it happens in the sign of Cancer, when your ascendant is in Cancer, your eclipse is happening in the 5th house of creativity. So everything that has to do with 5th house, it can be intelligence, it can be mind, creativity. 5th house has to do with investments and stocks and shares. It has to do with your children. So you may find out things that you never knew about them might come out in the open now. And that will be the focus of this coming year. Because remember, the eclipse is just a marker. In the coming year, when there are aspects or transits to that particular degree, which is called a sensitive degree, that is when events are triggered. Now, if you are a Leo ascendant, this is happening in your 4th house. 4th house is the house of your home, your comfort. It's your foundation. It's where you feel the most comfortable. And this 4th house, it can also be a brick and mortar house for sure. So there could be some repairs that are coming. There could be some you could be doing some improvements to your home. That's absolutely possible too. And with all of this happening in the sign of Scorpio, you could also have some very eye-opening discussions with your mother, because it's in the 4th house. If you are a Virgo ascendant, this eclipse is happening in your 3rd house. 3rd house is travel. It's to do with self-expression. So if you had difficulty in talking to people in the past or making your feelings or emotions known, which is basically expressing yourself, then that could be addressed this coming year. There could be short distance travel that happens this coming year. That's 3rd house too. And there could also be some relationship discussions around your relationship with your siblings, because 3rd house rules younger siblings. If it is in the sign of Libra, everything is going to be about finances this coming year, because the eclipse is happening in your 2nd house. So anything that you kind of didn't know about your financial status, or there could be money that's coming in from an area that you had no idea that it's going to come from. You could be earning some additional income, but at the same time, you may take a good look at the way you're making your income. There could be some areas that you can find some improvements in, because now with the eclipse, it'll bring out things in the open. If you're a Scorpio ascendant, it's very interesting, because the eclipse is happening in your 1st house. Now, in the 1st house, when the eclipse happens, a trend this coming year can be about yourself, your own personality, the way you portray yourself to the world, the way you look, the way you feel, and what you think that, the face that you put forward. So that can undergo change. You can be retrospecting about that. You can have some thoughts about that and change it. So that is going to be the trend this coming year. As a Sagittarius ascendant, this is going to be in your 12th house of long distance travel and foreign lands. So this is going to be about foreigners. There's going to be probably some foreign trips. And again, with the eclipse happening in your 12th house, there could be some difficulty with sleep this coming year, because, with the 12th house ruling sleep and dreams and all of that, there can be some issues with that. 12th house is also the unconscious mind. So with the eclipse happening there, you may have some deep and profound thoughts, psychic thoughts, even premonitions or intuitions in this coming year. If you are a Capricorn ascendant, this is in your 11th house of friends and social organizations. So if there was a certain organization that you're a part of and it's not serving a purpose anymore, it may go away this coming year. Something new might come in. Or you may find out something about your friends or your friend circle that you were not aware of. That's going to be the focus this coming year. If you're an Aquarius ascendant, this is happening in your 10th house. In the 10th house, when the eclipse happens, everything is about the work and career. So there can be a lot of churn or changes around there. Plus, at the same time, you may realize things which were happening at your career which you didn't know about in the past. There could be something about your superior or your boss that you could realize. So that could be what the eclipse is bringing. Now, if you're a Pisces ascendant, this is all happening in 9th house. So with the 9th house having the eclipse, what's going to happen this coming year is there could be some new topics that you want to learn about. There could be something that you're already learning, which you kind of realize now that it's not going to serve a purpose anymore, so you may put it away. There can be some long distance travel coming in. But at the same time, with Mercury being with Ketu, there could be a disruption to that travel too. Like if you decide to travel, there could be delayed flights or any kind of disruption that could happen to the travel, or difficulty, or kind of like a delay maybe to your travel. So remember, when eclipse happens in any sign, and eclipses happen every year, the impact is less if you don't have any planets on that eclipse point. If you have planets within, I would say, 27 to 29 degrees of Scorpio, that is when there will be a more profound impact in this coming year. Just because the eclipse is happening in a sign, it may have some indications in this year, but it may not be as strong as when you have a planet at that eclipse degree, the sensitive degree. And when you have a planet there, there can be an even more profound, life-changing kind of experience this coming year. Now, when you think about countries, everywhere around the world, you can look at the charts of the certain countries and you can see that there are changes happening. Now, in the case of United States, this eclipse is happening in the 12th house, which is the house of hidden enemies. So there are some churns and some changes that are happening within the country which have to be doing with hidden enemies, which we didn't know that there were these enemies in the past, and now the eclipse is going to bring this out. With Neptune being at the midpoint, there can be some deception, some deceit involved in media, in the television, and with the 12th house kind of aspect coming in as well, there could be some new truths that come out into the open. There could be some secrets that are revealed, because all of this is happening in the 12th house, which is hidden. 12th house, everything about the 12th house is under the cover, it's hidden, because it is the unconscious mind. It's not very obvious. But with the eclipse happening there, everything is brought from the dark into the light. And that's going to be the trend this coming year. And remember also, at the same time, Jupiter and Saturn are conjunct, and there'll be a great conjunction coming up on December 21st, and I'll be making another YouTube video on that, on what that means for you. But at the same time, if you think about it, this great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter is happening in the 2nd house of United States chart. So there can be a lot of changes around the financial market. There can be the stocks or the share markets can have a lot of up and down, because not only is the eclipse happening, at the same time you have this conjunction of two great planets in the 2nd house. You have Neptune, which is at the midpoint of the eclipse, which is to do with film and media and television and all of the things that are to do with illusion, and everything is going to come out in the open. And with Mars ruling the eclipse sign of Scorpio, being in Pisces and about to go into Gandhanta, there can be some feelings of anger and frustration. And this is going to be the trend in this coming couple of months until Mars goes into Aries, when things will be a little different. But I'll talk about that in my January predictions. Another thing that you can notice here is that the planet Pluto is almost at 0 degrees of Capricorn. Pluto is going to go into the sign of Capricorn in a few weeks, and then it will be at the exact degree, around 5 to 6 degrees of Capricorn, where it was when the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776, 250 years ago. That is monumental. Why? Because the whole idea of the planet Pluto, like I said, I do use the outer planets. Planet Pluto stands for rebirth, regeneration, reconstruction. It has to do with transformation. What happened when Pluto was in Capricorn 250 years ago? A new form of government was formed in the United States. So now with Pluto coming back in the same sign, Capricorn, remember the sign Capricorn does signify government. You have Jupiter and Saturn already there. At the same time, when Pluto comes and hits that same degree that it was in when the declaration was originally signed, this could signal a kind of rebirth of the government. There could be a new form of government. There could be a rebirth of the Constitution. Maybe things need to change now. So maybe that is what these planets are saying. Everything in the sky, in the universe, happens as per a plan. And everything happens for a reason. Nothing is a coincidence. So maybe this is the time for that change, because there are so many things happening which are all indicating the same thing. Secrets being revealed, the truth coming out into the open, government changing, Constitution going through a rebirth. All of that is happening. And it is all happening at this exact time frame. So we are living in a time of changing, where everything is changing around us. The structures are changing. The existing structures are changing. And with Mars and Pisces, I understand when people can go through feelings of feeling out of control. They may feel like things are slipping out of their hands. They don't understand what's going on. There can be anger and frustration. But at the same time, I want to tell you that whenever change happens, change is always difficult because we are set in our ways. That's our human tendency. We are creatures of habit. We like to be and set in our ways. When change happens, it's difficult because things are moving underneath us. The rug is being pulled from under our feet. But eventually, the change is going to bring something better. Something that is more fitting for the current times. We can't expect the same structure to serve its purpose forever. People change. The way people think changes, the way people act changes. Back when the Constitution was signed 250 years ago, there wasn't any social media. There was no Twitter or Facebook or any of this, not even internet. But now we have all of that. So with all of the changes that are going on now and all the secrets that are going to be revealed, there will be a change. And as enlightened beings, we have to understand that the change is going to bring something that's better and something that's going to be fitting for the current times. And we just have to have that faith because we know that the universe is never wrong. We have to have that faith and keep going on. And I hope you like this video. Please do sound off in the comments. And remember, if you want to learn astrology from me, my course Gemini Astrology is up for sale right now. And the link to purchase it is below this video. And I'm starting my classes in the first week of February. And I hope to see a lot of you there, hopefully. And we will have a wonderful time learning astrology. And you will get certified at the end too. It's a Gemini course. So you will get a Gemini Scholar certification. So I hope to see a lot of you over there. So thank you for listening once again. And I will see you next week.